It's Valentine's Day, and Planet Express has landed a contract with Romanticorp, the largest producer of love-themed products on Earth. As the crew is tasked to deliver a shipment of candy hearts, the professor announces that he's just finished installing several upgrades to the ship, including a new voice and personality for its artificial intelligence. Said AI immediately hits it off with Bender, and the two begin a whirlwind romance, a wonderful time for them both. But Bender, playboy that he is, soon grows bored in the relationship and begins to cheat on her with other robots. The ship notices something off and grows suspicious, acting increasingly erratic and possessive as time goes on. Meanwhile, Fry becomes obsessed with the candy hearts they've started trucking across the universe. He resolves to search through them all until he can find the one that truly expresses how he feels about Leela. It's in the middle of a mission that Bender decides it's time to properly break things off with the ship. She's left distraught, and in an attempt to console her, Leela says that changing Bender's lousy personality would be as impossible as changing the laws of time and space. The ship realizes the truth of Leela's words, and concludes that if she can't change the laws of time and space, she will fly them all directly into something that can. A black hole. As the ship changes course toward the deadly object, the others beg her to stop. She agrees, on one condition. Bender must connect with her and merge their programming together, becoming one forever. Bender is reluctant, but to ensure that Fry and Leela can't interfere, the ship shuts off the artificial gravity and her life support systems, draining all oxygen inside. As Bender goes to agree to the ship's request to merge their programs in order to distract her, Fry and Leela don oxygen masks and head for the ship's logic unit to disable her. As they float through the clouds of loose candy hearts, Fry starts eating them to get them out of the way. As Leela gets to work, Fry notices her oxygen supply is running low, but she's too focused on the task at hand to notice. After a few moments, Leela's job is done, the ship's AI is disabled, air and gravity restored, and Bender saved. But as she turns around, she finds Fry collapsed on the ground behind her. He hooked up his own oxygen tank to hers, saving her life. He isn't breathing. In a panic, Leela attempts to resuscitate him, only for him to cough up a candy heart that was stuck in his windpipe. The words emblazoned on it, "You leave me breathless." Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past. Alright, so at the very beginning of all this, that credits gag at the start when you see a robot drink, do not play this drinking game while watching Futurama. You will probably die.
That's it when you see the robots. I guess they're specifically referring to Bender.
Even
that
then,
still isn't.
Yeah.
He's the main robot, so.
Dangerous amounts of alcohol.
Well, he'd have to drink as much as a robot.
Maybe it's a drinking game for robots.
Yeah.
That would make more sense.
Bender would be their favorite character.
So, the ship has an AI now. Why has this never come up before?
I feel like they'd had a couple throwaway gags, like with a ship AI or something, in the past, but never to this extent.
I can't recall any time that it's ever been mentioned before.
Oh no, maybe it's new. Maybe that was one of the upgrades that was needed, but it was behind. I don't know. Something recently added.
Yeah, it works for this episode. It's just odd that it's suddenly a thing now.
Yeah, well, it's the kind of thing you don't, it doesn't seem out of the ordinary. It's just, it makes sense that a ship like that would have an AI that would respond to voice activation, and we have Alexa and stuff, so.
Sure, it's just, I don't know, I just find it strange that it is only coming up now and has never been mentioned before.
Well, a lot about this episode is very standalone. I feel like you could watch this episode without knowing anything else about the series, and it would still come off as very good. Because this is a good Valentine's Day episode. Even if you've never seen the series and you want to watch something for Valentine's Day, this is actually pretty good. Just as a one-off, as a fun sci-fi story, because it's really not that. It's a very low, I want to say low fantasy sci-fi in the sense that it's just like weird sci-fi concepts, and then it leans more into the comedic aspects of it. It's like, what if a robot fell in love with the ship AI? And it just kind of plays with that idea and has all these funny ideas that it goes with.
Yeah, it's a fun episode. It's just a shame that it won't be going, that this podcast won't be going live near Valentine's Day. Oh well. Yeah, we've never had a properly seasonal holiday episode. Why start now?
I'm sure we might get one at some point just by pure accident, but...
Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I give us about even odds. So, with what Bender and the ship's AI are talking about, what are y'all's opinions on government-subsidized art?
I'm in favor of a lot more government-subsidized everything.
Mood.
Except corporate buyouts.
Well, I mean, if the government bought out corporations themselves and, took privatized things and made them public, that would be good. It would be nice.
Especially if it's a service that everybody needs, like internet.
Oh yeah, no, these things really should be nationalized.
But that's getting into another debate.
Yeah, no, this is not an episode I want to really get into politics on.
Which is kind of funny because that is kind of the impetus of the episode itself, which is weird. The fact that there's this interesting thing going on as soon as the ship changes its voice, it doesn't really seem to change its underlying personality. It is still antagonistic in certain aspects, but I guess Bender isn't as notable. It's just antagonistic in different ways. It's just Bender doesn't notice it.
He's too distracted by the pretty girl voice, I guess.
Yeah.
Although it's interesting how this shows a lot, really exposes that for the robots in the series, gender is really artificial and would be largely aesthetic.
Yeah, it is very arbitrary.
Yeah, and it makes sense that it would work that way. That it would just be an aesthetic choice. I don't know, there's a whole rabbit hole we could go into there, but there are definitely better episodes to cover the topic.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But, as for the government subsidizing art in particular, I definitely think we really do need more of that, because they have done it before, and it has led to some very interesting art. It makes it a lot easier for artists who might not otherwise be able to afford to do it to, actually do it. It used to be that communities would fund their local artists and, they would do their thing. And
the closest thing we have to that now is when a church or religious institution funds art, and then transitive property, the church has the tax exemption. So in a way, it's government funded,
I guess. Although, to be fair, it does cut both ways. The rise of a lot of modern art during the Cold War was the result of basically just the CIA trying to push it deliberately, just because more traditional, realism art styles were very popular in the Soviet Union, and so the CIA wanted to distance
itself from that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I do like a lot of that modern art from that era. It is interesting and fascinating, but yeah, the fact is that it was specifically funded by the government for that for propaganda purposes, which, I mean, that is the risk there, but the fact is that a lot of artwork would only exist this way because it may not necessarily be commercially viable, so you wouldn't necessarily get a capitalist sponsor.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, is art is intrinsically, you try to make this thing just who create art. It doesn't need to have a capitalist slant, which is what sucks so much about, hey, guess what? We're talking about late-stage capitalism again. That's what sucks so much about artists trying to make any sort of art. They have to do something that's commercially viable to fuel what they actually want to do, with their passion project. It's just relentless. There is no way to really survive if you don't have that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also the fact that under a capitalist system, art does not exist to enrich the human experience. It exists to make a profit, and you get this ends up resulting in stuff like companies finding that something that they've made, they could make more money just using it as a tax write-off rather than actually releasing it. So we're seeing a lot of stuff with, these streaming shows now, just all these productions that have been finished but are being shelved just because they don't want to pay for the expense of releasing it. And honestly, I think the actors and production unions and such really need to crack down on this and make it unviable, because that is just all of this work going to waste. All these people who now have these holes on their resume after putting years of their lives into the production. It is such an infuriating thing.
And it's really kind of depressing to discuss in an episode that was actually pretty enjoyable for the most part, except for this really dark rabbit hole that we're getting down. This episode was really funny. I thought there was a lot of jokes in this that worked.
Yeah, God, wild that we ended up in this whole topic to begin with, just from a 10-second conversation
right at the start of the episode. It just establishes that Bender and the ship's AI fight.
Yep. Just talking about, government subsidized art and differing opinions on obscenity in art, which is a whole other topic we could really get into. And I don't know, do you guys want to talk about that?
Probably not.
Mean, I feel like there's a limit. Nudity is fine, but I feel like certain depictions, the glorification of abuse and whatnot, should not be presented in art.
Yeah, some things are definitely problematic, although it is a bit thorny to say that, no, this is entirely off limits, you can't do that, because that gets very sticky and could very easily catch things that are potentially less harmful, just because a lot of it is subjective. And
well, if we want to get into this, if we want to talk about government-funded art, if we want to talk about this stuff, you have to consider the fact that if people are so worried about being offended by art, all government-funded art will be so milquetoast, so basic, so simple and inoffensive that it may as well not even exist.
I mean, you could say the same thing about most corporate-funded shit, because they want to appeal to the widest audience possible. You saw this in, for instance, the early days of television, when there were only 3 major networks, and every single one of them put out the most bland, inoffensive, pointless nonsense, just because they were afraid of offending a single person and getting them to change the channel to a different network. And so, that's the reason why television got its nickname of the boob tube, because it was such mindless trash. Whereas, there are, you could potentially get the same motivation with anything government funded, but then you were, I think, just as likely to get something boundary pushing that way as you are under capitalism. I just think the difference is you're more likely to get something that may not necessarily exist under, balanced spreadsheets and commercial viability necessarily. But really,
okay, shall we move on then?
I just think anything that allows us to have more art is good.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Anyway, yeah, moving right along. Honestly, I think genetically engineering rainbow bears to kill and turn them into stuffed toys is extremely fucked up, and I feel like
that's such a dark joke. I fucking love it, and the writers kind of reveled in the darkness of that joke. That was one of those things that they were kind of proud of how dark that joke was. You could sort of tell.
It is extremely funny, but it is just horrifying. Holy fuck.
And Amy still finds it cute in the end? I can't tell if she's being sarcastic or not. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, that's the thing. The way she's animated there, to me, it felt almost like a shocked reaction. It looks very strained to me. But maybe I'm just reading stuff into it that isn't there. It's kind of hard to tell, to have that kind of subtlety in this art style. Although in the same factory scene, it's that whole joke with the wire dummies testing pickup lines.
I caught on that one. That was a deep cut right there.
Yeah, I was about to say, I wonder if that's a reference to the Harlow wire mother experiment.
I'm absolutely sure it was.
What?
You're not familiar with the Harlow?
That's the one with the monkeys, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was...
It's a little sad.
It really is, and so for context for anyone listening who might not know what we're talking about, so the Harlow wire mother experiment was an experiment intended to demonstrate the importance of parental affection beyond just meeting a child's basic physical needs, that you need to also, provide love for them and how important that is. Where to do this, they separated baby monkeys from their mothers a few hours after birth and gave them two inanimate surrogate mothers. One was a was made of wood and covered in cloth, and it was just this soft and comfy thing. But it was literally just the soft and comfy. And then the other one was made of metal wire, and the wire mother would be the one providing their food. And despite only getting food from the wire mother, the monkeys preferred to spend their time with the cloth mother. And it just showed that, love and affection is just as, if not more important to a child's development as, their basic physical needs. And it is
in the case of this, they're testing pickup lines on wire dummies of men. So it's like, wow, that's a really funny way of doing it, and that's also pretty dark.
Yeah, it's twisted in an amusing way. And I love the callback to it at the end of the episode with this woman on a romantic boat ride with the wire dummy.
It just works so well.
And then there's Fry looking for the most romantic possible words on a candy heart, and I don't know, to me it felt reminiscent of the Infinite Monkeys with Typewriters thought experiment, and again with the monkeys.
But there's like on these hearts, they're usually canned phrases that repeat.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, you can easily make all kinds of different ones. You always kind of find different. I would always kind of sort them. It's like, oh, this is the same phrase here, but they have like hundreds of the phrases on them. They're really bad, but again, talking about corporate art that is completely inoffensive.
I mean, they've also changed and added more over the years. Like, I believe now you can find ones that are like, text me.
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
But yeah, the reason I mentioned the Infinite Monkeys with Typewriters thing is just that he's talking about how the words must already exist, and it just made me think of the whole Infinite Monkeys and Typewriters with infinite time would recreate Shakespeare. In
reality, the monkeys just cause chaos.
It was the best of times, it was the blurst of times! That was a really good Simpsons joke.
It was the based of times, it was the cursed of time.
Damn it, TZ. I don't know, the next thing that caught my attention here was Bender singing Daisy Bell over a montage of his romance with the ship.
That's a fucking amazing reference, because it's the whole idea with him singing Daisy with the ship and the whole 2001 reference that that they're like, in the writer's room, they're like, this is a joke that we have to do. It's like, there is absolutely no way they couldn't do this joke. If they're going to do a musical scene between the two, what other song could it possibly be?
It so perfectly foreshadows the 2001 turn that the episode takes later.
And the fact that he does it straight, like he sings like the song as written, it doesn't change any of the words or anything.
It's a cute little love song.
Yeah, and you think he changed some of the words, make them more futuristic, change some of the phrases to be like, instead of a bicycle built for two, like a hover bike made for two or something. I don't know, but no, he just plays it straight. He says the actual song. I
mean, I feel like if you change the lyrics, it would kind of obscure the joke a bit. Because the point is just that they're doing the 2001 Space Odyssey riff.
Yeah.
Between the ship's eye being Hal's eye, and then this, and everything that happens later. The
destruction near the end, yeah, where the ship ends up. Yeah, it's like they had the idea, well, what if Hal, instead of hating the humans or not trusting them, ended up falling in love and getting his heart broken? So, the original 2001 Space Odyssey, the screenplay was written by Stanley Kubrick in collaboration with science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke. And as they made the screenplay, Clarke was also working on a novelization, and that was released around the same time as the film, and it actually explains a lot of what's going on that the movie just leaves up to your imagination, including the reason why Hal turns on them. And it is specifically that
he was given contradictory orders, specifically to maximize the odds of the mission succeeding, but then also he was ordered to keep the true nature of the mission a secret from them. And these contradictory orders, he ended up stuck in this paradox where it was impossible to fulfill both of these orders at the same time. And the way that Hal came up with to resolve this paradox is just to kill them and complete the mission himself.
Yeah, basically because the fact that that humans gave him contradictory orders, so humans cannot be trusted. Humans are a threat to the mission, thus the only way to successfully complete the mission is without humans.
Except it didn't have anything to do with lack of trust. It was literally just the only way to resolve the contradiction would be to remove the central point around which the contradiction circles.
Again, that's trust in the sense of a robot AI.
I'm not sure I'm explaining this very well, but it really just does come down to, because this was a very Arthur C. Clarke sort of way to write this.
Of course.
Anyway, I do actually recommend reading the 2001 A Space Odyssey novel, because it is very
Especially
interesting.
if you're ever confused by the ending.
Yeah, because he actually explains what the hell was going on in that ending, and even what the purpose of the monoliths was and everything, and their origin and all. And not only that, the book has 3 sequels.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, although for whatever reason, all of the changes that the movie made are kept for the sequels rather than the original book sticking to the script as written. Like, in the first book, it's Saturn, because that was the original plan, but then the effects team couldn't get the rings to look right, so it was changed to Jupiter in the finished movie, and so the sequels all go with Jupiter. Just little things like that just result in some weird continuity, but, fun books. I enjoyed them. But yeah, God, there are so many little bits in the homage in this episode. There's the "I'm afraid I can't do that, Leela," the lip reading scene, but with the punchline, the ship can't read lips. Even the process of shutting her down is just replacing the power cells with soda cans.
What a trip to Six Flags.
It's a good joke in its own right.
Do they still do stuff like that with soda?
I don't think so.
Not that I'm aware of.
I know they used to do stuff with bottle caps, but...
Oh, absolutely. Well, they used to do it with, the bottles, and they did do it with soda, so there was a thing, I believe sometimes, I don't know if they do that anymore, but they have, like, a Coca-Cola polar bear inside the thing, and then also there was a story back in, like, the 90s, the can contained... Like, it was a can, like, you opened it up and it would play, like, it would play a music cue that you won a prize. And in order to keep people, and so there wasn't actually soda in there, but in order to keep you from just, like, feeling the can and seeing that it was empty, it had ballast in it. It had just, like, saltwater ballast.
Huh.
And there was this rumor going around that someone, like, the signal didn't go off, so they drank the ballast and died.
That sounds like some kind of...
That sounds like that. Like,
rumor.
Mikey from the Life commercials drank Pop Rocks and soda and his stomach exploded.
Yeah, sounds fake. Honestly, I really don't like Bender in this episode.
Yeah, he's more of a jerk.
He's a dick, but at least he's in character.
Well,
This is kind of Bender in his top form. This is very much a Bender-centric episode.
I mean, like, cheating on his girlfriend just because he's bored with her, and not even
that's a dick move, yeah, absolutely. But...
Not even having the courtesy of taking the step of breaking up with her first, and then breaking up with her at literally the worst possible time, which, I mean, I've been through something like that, and it is devastating. That said, I don't like the ship's jealousy either when she sees him looking at other women, because, like, you can't not notice attractive people. It just doesn't work that way, and I hate the idea that you're not allowed.
That's the problem. The ship comes off as very catty as well, and because, like, with the ship insulting Leela just because she's not telling her what's going on, it's like, that's just a dick move.
Well, Leela was trying to tell her what's going on, and she didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, they're made for each other.
Yeah, really. That's a joke from. I like that joke from Fry's. Well, I know you're both items, but
God, they're made for each other. Yeah, they're made for each other in the same way as Ross and Rachel from Friends. God, I fucking hate that pairing. They're terrible for each other. Constantly,
and they absolutely were on a break.
That was ambiguous, but I don't want to get into the specifics. My point is that, like, their entire time spent together, they're just awful to each other. Their entire time apart, they're awful to each other and just horrible. I don't understand how that was, like, things you learn binging the entirety of Friends on Netflix is they are both awful people who were terrible to each other, and I ended up screaming at my TV in the series finale. And it's appropriate to bring this up because we have Lur and Inda watching Friends in this episode.
Well, this episode had the source of a lot of memes.
This concept of love confuses and infuriates us.
Why does Ross, the largest of the 6 friends, not simply eat the other 5?
God, and the irony of Lur not liking Joey is just that Joey was the one character on that show popular enough to get his own spin-off.
I would have watched a Chandler spin-off. But that's the thing, as I think I think Matt LeBlanc was kind of the only one willing to do it, because David Schwimmer kind of left acting to get into producing and directing.
I mean, I would not have wanted to see a Ross spinoff. Let's be real.
Phoebe spinoff could have been weird.
Phoebe could have been a lot of fun. I believe Phoebe was largely based on a character played by the same actress in a different show. I don't remember the title of it, but I think that was also why they gave Phoebe a twin sister, as sort of a reference to her other character.
Huh.
And I'm gonna just... Lisa Kudrow, what was she on?
I know. Matt LeBlanc was in a Married with Children spinoff.
Mad About You. That was the show. Yeah, and in fact, it's even the Phoebe's sister in Friends has the same name as her character on Mad About You, Ursula Buffet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so Friends exists within the Mad About You universe.
Apparently. For some reason, I couldn't remember the title. I like the Lucy Liu cameo inside Bender's chest cavity that we got in this episode.
It's great. Nice continuity from a previous episode.
It's a good continuity, but it seemed kind of pointless.
Yeah, well, from what I'd read during the episode where they got Lucy Liu, they had her record a bunch of extra generic lines in case they came up with a way to use them later.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's always fun to do.
That's why it's such a small thing where she only gets 2 lines, because that's what they had.
So yeah, I guess final thoughts on the episode.
I really enjoyed this one. It is a little frustrating seeing Bender and the ship be terrible to each other for 20 minutes, but it's funny.
It is. It's funny. It's fun.
It just sucks to see them be terrible to each other, but if they were nice to each other, it wouldn't really be a very interesting episode. That's the whole thing, is that drama comes from conflict, and humor comes from pain. So in the case like this, you really don't want to... That's why you watch Bender. You don't like seeing Bender being a nice person.
Generally speaking, you are correct, but I also don't enjoy seeing relationships where they're so terrible to each other that you wonder why they're even together to begin with.
Well, they're terrible to each other, and they're not together at the end, so I guess it all works out.
Yeah, I just don't find that satisfying to watch, that's all.
Well, you do, and then on the other hand, you do get the scene with the payoff with Fry and Leela at the end, with him finally finding the right heart.
That's true.
Which is just, the build-up to that scene is just amazing.
Yeah, no, that's a really sweet way to end the episode, honestly.
And Zoidberg!
And Zoidberg!
Yeah, it has kind of a schmaltzy ending, but it's not. It doesn't lean too heavily into it. It's especially if you understand the whole backstory with Fry desperately trying to tell Leela how he feels, but he's just not smart enough to do it correctly. So you can understand his frustration and just trying to, well, maybe somebody else has said the words for me.
Yeah, there's nothing inherently wrong with schmaltz. Judiciously used, it can be very effective, and it is here. It's just cute.
Even at the end, where like hundreds of planets were destroyed in the quasar, but Earth is just the right distance away. So you have that schmaltz with an incredibly cynical slant, which is really this show in a nutshell.
Yep. Anyway. Until next time, viewers, I want you to be aware that you all leave me breathless.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your three voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. Theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early at patreon.com/SpacePod3K. Follow us on Twitter at SpacePod3K. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew fight crime in Less Than Hero.